Today we're on the grounds of the Pritchard Farm at the 2nd Kernstown battlefield just south of Winchester, and you can actually see the farm off to our right there. Following the Battle of Cool Spring, General Horatio Wright believed General Jubal Early's Confederates no longer posed much of a threat and ordered the 6th Corps and a division from the 19th Corps to return to the Army of the Potomac at Petersburg. General Wright left General George Crook's Army of West Virginia here at Kernstown to keep an eye on the Confederates. General Early needed to keep the Federal forces in the valley and decided to attack General Crook's army. He hoped to destroy the Army of West Virginia before General Wright returned with the 6th and 19th Corps. General Early's men awoke early on July 24, 1864, to prepare for an attack on General Mulligan's isolated division. By daylight, the entire Confederate army marched down the Valley Pike towards Kernstown. Confederate cavalry, out in advance of the main body, ran into the Federal pickets and easily pushed them back towards Kernstown. General Crook also heard the sounds of battle, but incorrectly assumed the Confederate rear guard renewed the fighting to cover a continued retreat. Both sides sent more men towards Kernstown, and the skirmishing grew in intensity. By noon, the majority of General Early's army arrived. Confederates overlapped both Union flanks. Shortly after 1 p.m., General Crook, still believing he faced only a rear guard, ordered his army to attack. So Mulligan is going to hold them in place, while Hayes and Toburn's division attacked both flanks. The 54th Pennsylvania, part of Lieutenant Colonel John Linton's brigade and Colonel Mulligan's division, stayed behind in support of a battery here atop Pritchard's Hill. The men in the 54th watched as the two Federal brigades stepped into the open fields and meadows just in front of us on the other side of that stone wall and that tree line at the bottom of the hill. Confederate sharpshooters and skirmishers opened a deadly fire on them. Advancing through a hail of bullets, Colonel Mulligan's men managed to push the Confederate skirmish line back and took cover behind a stone wall running from the Opequon Church to the Valley Pike. General Early ordered his men forward, and the overwhelming Confederate attack drove the Federals back. Their advance forced Colonel John Linton to pull his command back to the stone wall along Pritchard Lane, which you can see down below us. There, the 54th Pennsylvania marched off the top of Pritchard's Hill, finally rejoined their brigade. With the additional men, Lieutenant Colonel Linton attempted to return to his original position, but his brigade only advanced 30 yards out into the open fields before Colonel Mulligan recalled them. Colonel Mulligan understood the unfolding disaster and wanted Lieutenant Colonel Linton's brigade to hold the wall and cover the rest of the division's retreat. Colonel Hayes, fighting off to our left, rallied a portion of his command behind the stone wall near the Valley Pike. Colonel Mulligan's command extended down the length of Pritchard Lane. Lieutenant Colonel Linton later wrote of the battle, "A vigorous attack was made by the enemy, which increased in intensity and fury as the day wore on." More Confederates arrived on the field. Their fire, coupled with Confederate artillery, hit the beleaguered Federals. Confederates concentrated their fire on the angle formed by Colonel Hayes and Lieutenant Colonel Linton's commands. The pressure proved too much for Lieutenant Colonel's men, and they started to make their way to the rear. Corporal Jonas Kaufman recalled later, "We were outflanked on both flanks, and our division cut in two parts. Our little corps could not compete with General Early's forces, and we were falling back towards Winchester." During the course of the battle, the men in the 54th Pennsylvania first fought their way forward to rejoin Lieutenant Colonel Linton's brigade. Then, with courage and confidence, they held their line behind the stone wall along Pritchard's Lane. The men in the 54th Pennsylvania heard the order to retreat with evident dissatisfaction, executed in excellent order. Twice during the initial retreat, the 54th Pennsylvania faced about and delivered a well-directed fire into the faces of the pursuing host. The men started to retreat in good order, but Confederate artillery soon found their range. With artillery raining down, Lieutenant Colonel Linton's horse stumbled over a pile of rocks and fell. The fall threw Lieutenant Colonel Linton violently to the ground, driving the hilt of his sword into the same collarbone the spent bullet struck at Snicker's Gap, but this time broke the bone. With assistance, he remounted and made his way to the Valley Pike. The artillery fire turned the brigade's retreat into a disorderly panic. Fighting waves of pain, Lieutenant Colonel Linton tried to remain in command of his brigade and attempted to rally them. The 54th was then obliged to take to the woods, recalled Corporal Kaufman. Darkness and the rain made it so that we just had to feel our way through. The regiment was much scattered and in small squads, he added. During the retreat, Major Yutzi reported, the brigade formed several times to cover the retreat and never fell back without orders from the brigade commander. A stubborn Union rearguard kept the Confederates at bay during the retreat until darkness ended their pursuit. Thank you for watching this episode of In the Footsteps of the 54th.